Good morning, everybody. I am once again having some issues with the Facebook app here. That looks like they did another update, so I am unable to put descriptions on this live. I can't even go live yet from my phone. I do have some emails out to engineers to hopefully get this fixed, but I am able to do a live weather briefing without a description here, and we've got an active week of storm chasing ahead. I don't think there's going to be any of those major outbreaks that we've had previously with those high risks, but I do think there's going to be tornadoes to chase, especially Wednesday. It looks like Wednesday is going to be the main chase day, probably across eastern Arkansas into southeastern Missouri. Maybe an arc of smaller supercells, though, up in Iowa that could happen just to the east of that surface low. Today we've got a slight risk up into Minnesota, but this is mainly a hail and a straight line wind threat. Not much in the way of tornadoes, but we are going to break this down as well. Let me switch on over to the forecast models, and let's break down the latest NAM model first. So it does look like this trough, this bowling ball of a trough, continues to trend just a little bit further south. I'm not sure that this continued trend to the south is going to help our odds of initiation across the dry line across western Oklahoma. I know we need the rain out there. We don't want the severe weather, but it does continue to trend south. It did look like maybe western Nebraska was going to be a potential surface low track for a chase day yesterday. Then it looked like maybe we were going to get a storm into central Kansas, so this further south track was still a reduction in that capping inversion up there. Now, though, with the continued south trend, it looks like the more favorable thermodynamics and kinematics are across western Oklahoma, just to the east of the dry line, but there's such a strong capping inversion that supercell initiation along the dry line into western Oklahoma seems pretty unlikely. And based on this initial glance at the NAM model, it does look like there is some erosion of that cap up near the Dodge City area into southwestern Kansas. But these dashed lines there, that indicates convective inhibition, or SIN, and that shows a capping inversion, a lid over the lower atmosphere that will prevent surface-based storms from developing. And you can see this massive capping inversion across central and eastern Kansas, basically the entire state of Oklahoma, except up near Buffalo, Slap-Out area, Laverne, into southeastern Kansas. And this is at 21Z, so this is at 4 p.m. You can see that front, the cold front, surging down to the south in western Kansas, and that triple point is going to be probably to the south of I-70, somewhere into southwestern Kansas. And if there is any chance of convective initiation, it's going to be that additional forcing created by that surging cold front in the vicinity of that triple point. And there is a big low-level jet, definitely plenty of low-level shear for a tornado threat if this system were to eject a little bit later in the year, more toward April into May, late April into May. Then I think we'd be talking about an outbreak of severe weather across the plains. But this is a La Nina, a lot of dry air. Big severe weather events have already happened across the Mid-South, and that has acted to clear out the Gulf of Mexico a little bit for this system. So we have just a little bit more marginal moisture to work with this storm system. But there still is some storm chase opportunities. This dry line event, southwestern Kansas into Oklahoma. But notice as you go from 21Z to 0Z, how that capping inversion really fills in there, even up to the triple point up into Kansas as you go from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And then as you go after dark, sometimes you can get an invigoration of that low-level jet, a late ejection of a storm system with some positive vorticity advection aloft, and some late arrival of moisture can sometimes lead to a nocturnal severe weather threat. But it looks like in this case, the capping inversion only becomes more strong across Kansas and Oklahoma. I do have a rental car reserved in Oklahoma City right now, just in case I need to roll in there tomorrow morning and chase this nocturnal threat. Otherwise, I'm going to drive west in Dominator 4 from upstate South Carolina and chase this event in eastern Arkansas. Look at all that abundant surface-based instability surging north. This is at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, and you get arrival of those mid-60s dew points into eastern Arkansas. The models so far have had difficulty resolving the instability across eastern Arkansas, kind of showing an abundance of storms developing within that southern mode. The GFS has largely hampered the development of that instability axis into eastern Arkansas. But now that we're getting a little bit closer to that event, you can see in the NAM that we have a decent instability axis that develops with capes in excess of 2,000 across eastern Arkansas. And there is a potential for a cold core, pseudo cold core event, basically an arc of supercells to the east of that surface low up into Iowa. And I do want to break that down as well. The good news for portions of the Mid-South is it does look like Thursday is trending down in terms of significant severe weather. But it does look like there could be a reinvigoration of that instability axis across southern portions of Mississippi and Alabama into southeastern Louisiana, where there could be some hail producers out there. But the main day looks like Wednesday now into eastern Arkansas. Bimodal setup with also a threat of supercells further north additionally. I'm using the College of DuPage site, the COD site, weather.cod.edu. Great visualizer for forecast models here, showing the evolution of the low-level jet in the southern mode. 50 to 60 knot winds there in eastern Arkansas into the Missouri boot heel. By 4 p.m., that axis is focused central Arkansas into southern Missouri and ejects to the northeast across eastern Missouri there a little bit, bringing that nose of the low-level jet even into the St. Louis area, starting to impinge into southern Illinois there by 0Z, with supercell storms approaching the Mississippi by this time. And then overnight, that axis shifts to the east into central southern Illinois, down into western Kentucky, western Tennessee, into western Mississippi. And associated with that axis of the low-level jet, there's also some pretty strong low-level shear that's going to eject off to the north as well. There's the storm relative helicity. I love this toggler here at the top. And as you go towards 0Z, notice how at 21Z, you do have some decent 0 to 1 kilometer helicity in excess of 150, even up there just to the east of the triple point into southwestern Kansas. So if those storms can develop up there in Kansas, they will have a chance of producing tornadoes. But the capping inversion is incredibly stout. And the more it trends south, it seems like that brings the triple point into even a stronger cap further south near the Oklahoma-Kansas border. Let's see how the wind shear increases, especially as you get near 6Z, near midnight. That's the system finally ejecting just a little bit late. But you do get some big wind shear in western Oklahoma and Oklahoma City. Wednesday morning, or overnight Wednesday, in the middle of the night, you'll be able to look up and see that low-level jet just ripping overhead. And then as you get toward Wednesday morning, the front shifts east of the Oklahoma City metro. And then you get the arrival of that moisture toward Wednesday afternoon. And near the core of that instability axis, here across southern Missouri into northeastern Arkansas, that's where you get that storm relative helicity greater than 250 down there. This kind of has feelings of that Jonesboro setup from last year. It's not as dynamic of a system, not quite the moisture out there. But that event also looked like there was some marginal instability down here initially in the models. And then as you got closer, you realize the true thermodynamic environment is quite supportive of tornadoes out there. So out near Poplar Bluff, a sounding by about 4 p.m., southeastern Missouri. The thermodynamics still look meager. You're saturated all the way up, probably in the middle of some convection here. But overall, the wind shear looks incredibly favorable for a tornado threat. You've got a 40 to 50 knot low-level jet there in the lowest kilometer. A little loop here that's irrelevant because you have such strong low-level wind shear. Plenty of mid and upper-level flow to evacuate rain and hail from that updraft. Let me get rid of my head. I see that it's right over the hodograph. There you can see that hodograph. Quite favorable there with 40 to 50 knot, 1 kilometer winds. You can see that little loop-de-loop there in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, which is quite irrelevant because the mid and upper level flow is more than sufficient to evacuate that rain and the hail from the updraft and maintain long-lived mesocyclones. You do have a little bit of a stable layer here at the low levels, and it's saturated all the way down. That's suggesting that there's probably going to be some cloud cover issues out there across eastern Arkansas, but you have such favorable wind shear with this hodograph that really any breaks in the clouds, any elevated mix layer that's able to overspread those big dew points across northeastern Arkansas into eastern Missouri, eventually spreading into southern Illinois as well with that low-level jet axis. Look at there up into St. Louis too. You've got greater than 250 0 to 1 kilometer storm relative helicity poking into the St. Louis area by Wednesday as well. So I do think that Wednesday is going to be the main tornado producer day as we go through Thursday. Look at how that wind shear really drops off. You might get some decent low-level helicity there into northern Georgia and maybe just here in the Carolina Piedmont on Thursday for some potential storms. Could even threaten the Masters a bit with some convection moving that way. The first day of the Masters on Thursday in Augusta. But really the main threat is looking right here near the St. Louis area. Let's look at a forecast photograph near St. Louis. Really loving the interface here that College DuPage has going on. And you can definitely see a very saturated low-level environment. Temperatures and dew points in the low 60s. But if this elevated mix layer here will overspread those dew points and lead to some breaks in the clouds, you could definitely get some quick low-level instability generated fast. Maybe erode some of these clouds, get some breaks into the cloud cover, because you do have a pretty favorable photograph here for a tornado threat poking up into the St. Louis area by this time, right at the nose of that low-level jet. Maybe down into the Missouri Boot Heel region as well on Wednesday. I wouldn't be surprised if this is upgraded to an enhanced risk. Despite the low-level cloudiness and slight limitations in the low-level thermodynamics, I think that you could see the potential here with the low-level shear being quite dramatic with that 1 kilometer wind being 40 to 50 knots. Plenty of area here, despite those critical angles being about 40 to 50 degrees. You have such long shear vectors that you're still able to squeeze out plenty of 0 to 1 kilometer storm relative felicity. And in fact, this particular photograph has 376 0 to 1 kilometer storm relative felicities with that. So that's definitely my target area. We do want to look at Iowa as well. Still trying to figure out this interface. It is pretty awesome, though. This is the 12ZH triple R. Letting it load. Good. Still loading the HRRR here. In the meantime, here's Gizmo. Waking up this morning, having some good treats. Another great start to the day for Gizmo. She's thinking about activating storm chase mode as well this week. We are having some slight technical difficulties this morning. Pivotal weather website. I saw that their servers were down so far this morning. And look at that surface low now coming in further south. This is the HRRR. The surface low as we're going in through Tuesday evening drops down at near that Kansas-Oklahoma border where there is just a little bit stronger of a cap. Look at the HRRR really blow up the supercell composite after dark, but the cap is so stout, even up near its nose up here into Kansas. So even though the environment is quite favorable here across western Oklahoma and to south central Kansas, the models are just not showing convective initiation out there, even along the leading edge of this front that's surging to the south. And the reason is because the convective inhibition really builds up and prevents those storms from developing. Yesterday, the 3-kilometer NAM was hinting at convective initiation, maybe even up near I-70. But now as this Vortmax is trending a little bit further south of that triple point, it's moving into an environment with oppressive convective inhibition. Look at that. All those dashed lines there. That's a cape axis that's strongly capped. And it does look like the HRRR even has a stronger cap than is depicted by the NAM up there near the triple point into southwestern Kansas, suggesting that convective initiation may not happen at all in the southern plains. Maybe up there near I-70, near the Salina area, you could get some initiation right at the nose of that instability axis, but that's largely going to be elevated storms up there. And you can finally see the better moisture starting to organize late Tuesday night across the central Gulf of Mexico, setting the stage for that eastern Arkansas event. Definitely not going to see any of these updraft helicity swaths out there. It's usually not a product that I use too terribly much. I think if we had 60 plus dew points in here, we'd probably be talking about a severe weather event. But those 60 plus dew points don't really arrive until after the atmosphere decouples, kind of arriving beneath that cap. You do get some near 60 dew points late night, maybe near midnight, arriving up there near the Wichita area before that front surges through. There you can see that cold front dropping south on the backside. Beautiful animation. Look at the arrival of the deeper moisture finally in the central Gulf of Mexico. You got some mid-60s down there along the Texas coast, even upper 60s down near Brownsville. Possibly setting the stage for eastern Arkansas, southeastern Missouri, but this late arrival of the moisture is going to lead to abundant cloud cover, and that's definitely a limiting factor for Wednesday across northeast Arkansas and eastern Missouri, even into southern Illinois. Could have some potential storms there. So really what I'm seeing here are the trends in these new models. The NAM has a little sliver of no cap across southwestern Kansas where there's a chance of maybe some surface-based convection. But the HRRR shows no surface-based storms there right now. I'm going to be watching this like a hawk during the day today. Tonight's HRRR, we'll see if it can convect or if it just looks like that cap. If the capping inversion was going to erode and there was some arrival of better, deeper 60s dew points Tuesday night, then I would think there could be a chance for a nocturnal event that's worth chasing. But it just looks like this late arrival of the moisture with 60s dew points really finally arriving into Oklahoma by Wednesday morning, eastern Oklahoma. It looks like surface-based initiation just a little too late with the moisture for this event to get surface-based supercell storms and much-needed rainfall. Looks like it's definitely setting up toward more of an eastern Arkansas, southeastern Missouri type of a chase. We can shift sectors. Let's look for that Iowa event on Wednesday as well. That was the next thing we were looking at. There's the surface low dropping down near the Oklahoma border. And then on Wednesday morning, it should start to eject a bit, but it's more of a diffuse surface low. It's not a strong surface low. Comes in at about 1,000 millibars there in eastern Kansas on Wednesday morning. So it's not your traditional cold core event. I should go out a little further. A little blob of some low-level cape that tries to develop there into central Iowa by Wednesday morning, but it just doesn't. We're just not going out far enough. Good heavens. So this is on a Wednesday at 18Z. You can see temperatures rising into the 70s here. Abundant easterlies. Weaker surface low across the northwestern corner of Missouri. Will likely slide off to the northeast here. Quite a bit of heating happening, and you can see a lot less heating happening down into eastern Arkansas by 1 p.m. So I could see these easterlies here into central Iowa. That's at 0Z. Let's do 21Z. So that's kind of the heating axis across eastern Iowa here. Closer to the surface low, you do get these easterlies, temperatures into the middle 60s. Nice supercell composite there. This is at 1 p.m. on Wednesday. Doesn't quite materialize across eastern Iowa, but you know how these arcs go in eastern Iowa here. With even any cape, you get an arc of little supercells that will develop within this environment, probably produce beautiful photogenic tornadoes, despite the better kinematic environment, even down into northeastern Arkansas, into northeastern Missouri. And as is often the case of these kind of pseudo cold core setups, not an abundance of instability there. You could definitely get an arc of mini supercells lifting in through central into eastern Iowa with this event. But really, I think the main event is going to be eastern Missouri into southern Illinois, maybe northeastern Arkansas, with that event down a little bit further south. But I'm going to keep an eye still on both of these targets. I haven't committed to anything yet. Oh, look at that. Even though it is a vertically stacked 850 low up to 500, just seems like you're lacking a little bit of flow on the east side. Most of the 850 winds are on the back side of this, so that low-level jet axis pushing off to the east into Illinois with time. But it's possible along the leading edge of this, right at the nose of this low-level jet axis, just ahead of that vertically stacked 850 up to 500 low, that you could get an arc of supercells extending into Iowa. Cold pocket air aloft here at 500. Temperatures down to minus 25 degrees C. It's at 18Z. That cold pocket is trying to get up toward Iowa, but kind of pushing to the east across northern Missouri. Makes you wonder if that cold core threat is really going to be more toward a northeastern Missouri, southeastern Iowa type of an event, right near the track of that bulbous 500 millibar low. And you get quite veered 500 millibar winds to the southwest over the southern target. Well, still a bit meridional there, southeastern Missouri into northeastern Arkansas. It's kind of one of the pitfalls of a vertically stacked closed low like this, is you often only realize favorable wind shear over a very small area for tornadoes. So really on Wednesday, two different target areas, southeastern Missouri into northeastern Arkansas, and you could play the cold core, central and eastern Iowa into northeastern Missouri. But models are definitely trending toward less of a chance of convective initiation Tuesday night. Just a late arrival of that upper level system across western Kansas there. A beautiful loop of that very cold, closed bowling ball of an upper level system moving off to the east toward the Great Lakes. This system in general had deeper moisture, mid to upper 60s, even 70 dew points. You'd be talking about an outbreak of severe weather from the southern plains across portions of eastern Arkansas, southeastern Missouri, and even the mid-south. Here's the Storm Prediction Center outlooks. I think that they've maintained their slight risk across Kansas, even at 2% tornado probability, largely based on yesterday's models. I wouldn't be surprised if when the 12Z come out, it's possible that could even be decreased a bit to a marginal. And then the slight risk across the Arkansas target, may want to extend this further north, even towards St. Louis, with that low-level jet ejecting from central Arkansas toward eastern Missouri. Now, this is definitely my chase day this week, it looks like. And then I think on Thursday, probably not even a risk yet on the day 4 as it slides off to the southeast. And then I think the second half of April is going to wake up for the southern plains. Looks like the long range is quite a bit more active out there. Take a look at today's setup. There's the development of this instability axis through afternoon. Definitely could be some hail producers up there. Even some non-zero low-level helicity developing as early as 19Z. This is today, this afternoon. See the development of 2,000 to 2,500 Cape. Quite a bit of sin across dominating Iowa into southeastern Minnesota. But out here to the west of Minneapolis, it looks like that sin does erode quite a bit. Just to the west of Minneapolis, you do have, that's at 0Z. The arrival of the upper support as we're getting later on this afternoon toward 1 p.m. And as this arrives and meets up with the better moisture, you can see west of Minneapolis getting some hail producers out there, isolated, beautiful convection. Looking at my live, it does look like some of this showed up, doesn't it? There it is. So this is at 22Z this evening, simulated reflectivity. There they go. So it looks like about 2Z, 7, 8, 9 p.m. Some slightly elevated severe storms could develop to the west of Minneapolis. Looks like a 8, 9, 10 p.m. type of an event. Extending into southwestern Minnesota as well. And these are definitely going to be elevated. Look at the convective inhibition here, even just ahead of that front. Elevated hailers out there. That's why there's a 0% tornado. This is cool. These this new model product. I need to expand my horizons and use more new models. So there could be a little band of elevated convection lifting to the northwest of Minneapolis, and then the development of these severe storms moving in toward Minneapolis potentially by about 7, 9, 8 p.m. This is simulated echo tops. And there is a bit of a supercell composite that develops, suggesting good bulk shear, even though you do have these elevated supercells, and that could enhance locally the hail sizes here between about 7 and 10 p.m., especially to the west of Minneapolis. So that's why there's a slight risk up in this area. Central western Minnesota, not as chaseable as these other events, but if you live in Minnesota, probably would be a good chase for you. And the actual parent system for this severe weather event is to the north into Canada over Hudson Bay. A little bit of a jet streak coming in from the Dakotas into western Minnesota. That could be enough to fire those elevated supercells and provide enough bulk shear to get some elevated mesocyclones and some larger hail even out there. Now this is the main system. A little bit of a subtropical connection too, helping to enhance the shear vorticity on the base of that trough and helping it to really deepen and go further south than anticipated. Look at that thing, just cruise off to the east-southeast, interacting with that subtropical branch. I think we'll get to more of a consolidated jet stream as we go toward the end of April too. Second half of April should be much more of a consolidated jet. A little bit of a surface pressure trough here ahead of that front coming in. So in general, I see elevated hailers, maybe some gusty winds to the west and southwest of Minneapolis, across central Minnesota into southwestern Minnesota tonight between about 7 and 10 p.m. Maybe some thunder and lightning arriving in the Minneapolis area. Tomorrow, I think, remains capped. Maybe a chance of some elevated storms develop Tuesday night across Kansas. And then I'm going to target northeastern Arkansas into eastern Missouri, maybe even near the St. Louis area on Wednesday. And then Thursday looks like the system shears out and no moisture. So kind of a bit of a subdued severe weather threat this week compared to the other events previously, with a couple of high risks in a row during March. But still, there's a chance of significant severe weather, especially Wednesday, eastern Arkansas into eastern Missouri, I would say is the best chance of that happening. But really, that low peaks here in the southern high plains. The northern Texas Panhandle is a 993 low coming out tomorrow. So the best kinematics and best timing of the ejection would be Tuesday evening. If this system had moisture, you'd be talking about a big-time severe weather event happening there. So thank you, everybody, for joining my weather reports. Hopefully I can get this Facebook app fixed and get Pivotal Weather going again as well. They have some issues on their server end, but I definitely enjoy giving these weather reports, and I'm going to continue monitoring the models during the day today and come up with a plan for chasing this week. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your Monday, and never stop chasing.